There is a game being played around you every single day, and almost no one realizes they're playing it. It's the invisible game of human psychology, a silent competition between who you are and who the world is trying to turn you into. Most people are completely unaware of the rules. They chase after the visible victories. More followers, more approval, more applause, more comfort, more status, more validation. But what they don't see is the invisible scoreboard, because while they're chasing external points, they are losing internal ones. Every time they shrink themselves to fit in, the scoreboard changes. Every time they silence their truth to avoid judgment, the scoreboard changes. Every time they betray their own values for the acceptance of others, the scoreboard changes, and they fall behind. Not in the eyes of the world, but in the deeper, secret eyes of the self. That's the trap of the invisible game. You can look like you're winning publicly, while losing privately. You can be admired for a life that feels like a prison. You can succeed at everything, except the one thing that actually matters: your inner alignment, your integrity, your self-respect. That's the real score. And here's the truth no one told you growing up. The world doesn't reward the real you. It rewards the version of you that makes others comfortable. So you learned to play small, to smile when you were breaking, to agree when your soul was screaming no, to wear masks so well. You forgot what your real face looked like. But now, you are waking up. You are starting to question. Why am I trying to win a game I never asked to play? Why am I living a life that doesn't feel like mine? Why does everyone else get a voice over who I am? This is where the shift begins. Because the moment you become conscious of the invisible game, you stop being a pawn in someone else's board, and you start becoming the player in your own life. You begin redefining what winning even means. Not being liked, but being real. Not achieving everything, but achieving what matters. Not fitting in, but belonging to yourself. This is your advantage now. You see what others refuse to see. You are learning the secret. The biggest battle is not out there. It's inside. The scoreboard isn't on a screen. It's in your heart. And the true victory is this: becoming someone you are proud to be. Manipulators don't start by overpowering you. They start by unbalancing you. Not physically, mentally, emotionally, quietly. They don't push you over. They make you question your own footing. Because the easiest person to control is the person who is no longer sure of what they know. And Carl Jung warned us, nothing is easier to influence than a fragmented self. So how do they begin? They target your uncertainty. They look for the places where your confidence is still under construction, where your voice is a whisper instead of a declaration. They learn to spot your hesitation before you speak, the way you apologize for existing, the way you soften your truth so others won't be uncomfortable, the fear behind your calm expression. Those are open doors. If they can make you doubt your reality, they can rewrite your story. If they can make you doubt your intentions, they can accuse you of anything. If they can make you doubt your voice, they can speak for you. They don't manipulate your strengths. They manipulate your inner gaps. So it starts small. What? I never said that you're being dramatic. You took it the wrong way. You're imagining things. Suddenly your clarity becomes confusion. Your certainty becomes hesitation. Your memory becomes a negotiation. Your identity becomes a debate. You aren't silenced by force. You are silenced by self-doubt. That is the moment they've been waiting for. Because once you start believing that they know you better than you know yourself, you become a character in their version of your life. This is why self-trust is not optional. It is psychological armor. When you trust your own inner authority, manipulation doesn't penetrate. Twisted words don't stick. False narratives fall apart. Control loses oxygen. Your clarity becomes your shield. Your conviction becomes your boundary. Your voice becomes your protection. And the game changes instantly, because they cannot distort what you no longer doubt. Manipulators never begin with a threat. They begin with a question that isn't spoken out loud, but one they plant inside your mind. Are you sure? Not about the world, but about yourself. Because Carl Jung taught that when a person is internally divided, they become vulnerable to outside influence. The less certain you are of your inner truth, the more power others gain over your reality. So manipulators study you. They analyze the parts of you that are still searching for approval, the parts that want to be liked, the parts that fear rejection, the parts that feel not enough. They sharpen their weapons out of your insecurities. They notice the way you over-explain your intentions, how quickly you apologize for things you didn't do, how you laugh at insults just to keep the peace, the silence that follows your "I think," the tension in your voice when you disagree, the relief you feel when someone validates you. These are signals, clues, open invitations for manipulation to enter. So they start their work with psychological precision. First, they distort your memory. That's not what happened. You're making this up. Then, they twist your emotions. You're too sensitive. You always react like this. Then, they question your character. You just want to be a victim. You're selfish for feeling that way. Then, they claim the role of the one who understands reality better than you. If you listened to me, you'd see the truth. You're lucky I'm here to help you think straight. And your mind starts to fracture, not because they are right, but because you've been conditioned to believe others before yourself. Suddenly, you hesitate before speaking. You review every sentence in your head. You begin asking for permission to feel what you feel. You shrink your voice, even when you're correct. You start to outsource your judgment to someone who has no intention of honoring your truth. This is not an accident. It is a strategy. Because the moment you begin doubting your own perception, you become dependent on theirs. And that is the ultimate goal. Control disguised as guidance. Dominance hidden inside concern. Manipulation camouflaged as logic. But here is the turning point. The moment everything changes. You remember that your perception is valid. Your emotions are information. Your boundaries are not negotiable. Your truth is not a debate. You stop treating self-trust as arrogance and begin treating it as survival. You understand that confidence is not about knowing everything, but trusting your ability to know what matters. And suddenly, they lose their grip. Because once you believe your own voice, no one can use it against you. You become clear. You become grounded. You become unshakable. Self-trust is the end of their power, and the beginning of yours. A manipulator does not overpower you. They disorient you, not by yelling, not by threatening, not by force. They confuse you, because confusion is the fastest route to control. When your mind is uncertain, you look for someone to guide you. And they are already there, smiling. Carl Jung warned that when a person's perception becomes unstable, they cling to any source that promises certainty. Manipulators use this as a weapon. So how do they create confusion? They twist your words, subtly, expertly, strategically. You say something clear and simple, and they reshape it into something unrecognizable. You set a boundary, and suddenly you're cold, dramatic, or unreasonable. You express concern, and somehow you're the one causing problems. You speak your truth, and they respond with, "I never said that." You're not making sense. You always twist things. Why are you attacking me? And you begin to doubt the very thing you were once certain of. Because if they can make you question what you said, what you meant, what you believe, what you deserve, then the ground beneath your identity starts to shake. Here's their pattern, the anatomy of confusion. Step 1. Make you defensive. If they can trigger you, they can claim your reaction is the problem. Step 2. Shift the focus. The issue disappears. Suddenly, the issue is you. Step 3. Rewrite the story. Your words become their narrative. Your intentions become their accusations. By the time you try to correct the distortion, you're already tangled in the trap. Because confusion creates silence. Silence creates space for their version of reality, and their version is always designed to benefit them. This is not a debate. It's a power play. The goal is not to win the argument. The goal is to make you stop trusting yourself. But here is the truth they hope you never find. When someone keeps twisting your words, the issue is not your communication. It's their manipulation. When someone only listens to misunderstand, that is not miscommunication. It is control. When someone refuses to acknowledge your reality, that is not confusion. It is erasure. And the most dangerous confusion is the confusion that convinces you your voice doesn't matter. But you are awakening to the strategy now. You can feel the shift. You no longer chase their approval. You no longer explain yourself into exhaustion. You no longer give them the authority to define what you know you meant. Your clarity becomes your rebellion. Your calm becomes your counterattack. Your self-respect becomes your clarity. And the moment you see their tactic clearly, it ceases to work. Because confusion cannot survive in the presence of a person who finally trusts their own mind. Some of the most controlling people will never raise their voice. They never look angry. They never appear threatening. Instead, they act like they're worried about you. This tactic is subtle, strategic, calculated. Because control wrapped in concern is the most believable form of control. They approach you with tenderness, but the goal is influence. They speak with softness, but the purpose is pressure. They say things like, "I just want what's best for you. You shouldn't take things so seriously. I know you better than you know yourself. You're overthinking. Let me help you understand." On the surface, it sounds protective, supportive, caring. But underneath, there's a message. Your judgment isn't valid, mine is. Carl Jung emphasized that when someone constantly defines your reality for you, they are not helping you grow. They are replacing your inner authority. That is the real intention, not your well-being, their control. The tactic works like this. They disguise commands as guidance. You should do this. They disguise criticism as advice. I'm telling you this for your own good. They disguise superiority as wisdom. One day you'll understand that I'm right. The result? You start policing yourself based on their imaginary rules. You second-guess decisions that were once automatic. You seek approval before you even act. And here's the most dangerous part. You begin to mistake control for support. You start believing that dependence is safety. You start believing that permission is care. You start believing that silence is peace. They don't have to take your power. You will slowly give it to them while thanking them for the help. But ask yourself, if someone really wants what's best for you, why do you feel smaller around them? Why do you feel less capable, less confident, less yourself? True support strengthens your voice. Manipulation replaces it. True support says, you're capable. You can decide. Manipulation says, you'd be lost without me. True support gives clarity. Manipulation creates confusion. True support empowers independence. Manipulation demands loyalty. So here is the moment of transformation. You reclaim responsibility for your own choices. You stop asking permission to be the person you already are. You stop accepting guidance disguised as restriction. You stop believing that someone else's comfort is more important than your autonomy. You step into your own authority with no apology. And suddenly, their concern loses its power. Because when you trust your own ability to lead your life, no one can lead it for you. They will act surprised. They will act confused. They will act offended. That is the proof that what they offered was never support. It was leverage. But now, you see it. You feel the shift. You choose your freedom. And once you experience the confidence of self-governance, you will never again bow to control masquerading as care. Manipulation doesn't announce itself. It doesn't begin with a confrontation. It begins with something that feels harmless. A small correction, a subtle reinterpretation. You assume good intentions. You assume they misunderstood. You assume they're listening. And that assumption is the opening they rely on. They twist your words gently at first, almost playfully, almost like they're helping you communicate better. They don't start with force. They start with familiarity. Carl Jung said we avoid seeing the uncomfortable truth about someone we know. You think, they wouldn't distort what I said. They know me better than that. They're just overreacting. So you ignore the first distortion. You overlook the second. You rationalize the third. By the time the twisting becomes obvious, you're already defending yourself. You're already trying to correct the record. You're already trapped in the explanation game. And that game has one rule: you cannot win. Because the more you explain, the more they insist you're wrong. The more you clarify, the more they claim you're changing your story. The more you try to be understood, the more misunderstood you become. They don't fight your truth. They fight your confidence in your truth. And here's the quiet part people don't like to admit. You hesitate to confront manipulation because you want the connection to remain intact. You want the interaction to feel normal. You want the conversation to make sense again. You want them to suddenly say, "Oh, I see what you meant." So you wait. You hope. You keep trying. That patience, that willingness to fix what they break, is what allows the break to spread. The shift is gradual. It's invisible while it's happening. And when you finally realize what's going on, you're already questioning your right to speak. Not because they proved you wrong, but because they made you doubt whether you were ever right. That is why you don't see it coming. It's not weakness. It's trust. Trust that was used as a trap. But once you see the pattern, once you recognize the tactics, the game changes. Because now you're not confused. You're aware. You're watching. And awareness is the first step toward taking back control. The first step is to stop chasing their approval. You are not here to convince them of your meaning. You are here to protect it. When they twist your words, do not defend the distortion. Return to the original truth. State it again, simply, confidently, without apology. Say, "That's not what I said." And leave it there. No extra explanation, no long justification, no emotional frustration, because manipulators feed on reaction. They want you explaining. They want you scrambling. They want you desperate to be understood. So take that away from them. When they insist they know what you really meant, respond with, "You're not the interpreter of my intentions." Watch how quickly the game changes when you stop playing your assigned role. If they keep twisting, ask them, "Repeat exactly what you think I said." Not their version, not their assumption, your exact words. Distortion cannot survive in precision. If they exaggerate a detail, reduce it back to size. You're stretching what I said into something it wasn't. Neutral, clear, non-negotiable. And if they try projecting, hand their accusation back. That's your claim. It doesn't reflect my actions. No arguing over it, no accepting blame for things you didn't do. If they keep repeating their narrative, do not match their repetition with defense. Match it with boundaries. I'm not continuing a conversation based on something I didn't say. Then stop talking. Silence becomes strength when you refuse to fill it with self-doubt. This is the turning point. You stop reacting and start asserting. You stop apologizing and start owning your voice. Carl Jung emphasized the power of self-awareness. When you know your truth deeply enough, no one can rewrite it for you. You don't have to convince them. Your meaning does not require permission. Your clarity does not need their approval. When you protect your message, their manipulation collapses. Because the moment they can't twist you, they can't control you. Authority doesn't come from being loud. Authority doesn't come from arguing harder. Authority doesn't come from proving yourself to someone determined to misunderstand you. Authority comes from certainty, your inner certainty, the kind that does not shake just because someone else tries to bend it. Carl Jung emphasized this. When you take ownership of yourself, you remove the space where others try to define you. So here is where the shift happens. You stop speaking to be accepted. You start speaking because your voice is valid. When you trust your intentions, you don't panic when they are questioned. When you know what you meant, you don't crumble when it's twisted. When you are grounded in yourself, their version of you loses power. Build this mindset. I understand my meaning better than anyone else. Hold that truth like steel, because manipulation collapses against a mind that no longer doubts itself. Your goal is not to win arguments. Your goal is to stay aligned with who you are while the argument happens. You return to your message again and again, without anger, without fear. And when they push you to explain more, to justify more, to twist yourself to earn their approval, you say, "I've already said what I meant. I don't need to expand it for you." That is inner authority, the calm refusal to be redesigned by someone else. And here's the transformation. You stop trying to manage their response. You stop shrinking your honesty. You stop negotiating your truth. Your voice becomes clear again. Your posture straightens. Your tone stabilizes. Not because they understand you, but because you understand you. You no longer fear being misinterpreted, because you know who you are, even when others get it wrong. That is what ends the manipulation, not confrontation, not aggression, not revenge. Awareness, clarity, ownership. When you become the author of your meaning, no one else gets to write your story. You have spent too many years outsourcing your worth, waiting for someone else to validate your choices, to reassure you, to approve you, to grant you permission to exist fully. But listen carefully. There comes a moment in every person's life where they must ritz from the audience and step onto the stage of their own destiny, where they stop asking, "Do you think I can?" and start declaring, "Watch me."